So we said we'd look at the 4 different categories. There is a handout that comes with the training, so make sure you've got that available with you. Because I'm going to go through quite a bit of information here, and I'm going to go through it pretty quickly. But the idea is actually pretty simple. So there's 4 categories of salesperson, or 4 groups. The first one is what I call an order taker. Sometimes you'll hear this person being referred to as a customer service rep. Sometimes they're called an account manager. Typically, they spend the majority of the day responding to inbound inquiries. So they get emails and they get phone calls from clients. They're typically either asking them to process orders and process sales, or they're asking for estimates. And the order taker is processing most of the time. They may be doing other things, but essentially what they're doing is they're reacting to a customer demand. You'll see a phrase on the screen in front of you there called better sameness. What I mean by that is they don't really articulate a strong value proposition when they're dealing with their target marketplace. So most of the proposition is based upon being the same as their competition, but claiming they're better at it. So they're putting out a lot of quotes and they're hoping they're going to win. And the focus is often on the commodity pricing. So they're trying to beat whatever estimates the prospect or the customers had in from competitive bids. So that's the order taker. Then we've got the product seller. This is actually where I started most of my early days in B2B selling. And most of the focus here is on the characteristics of the product or service. So these people struggle to differentiate themselves and don't really understand solution selling. What they typically do understand is the characteristics of the thing they sell. So they tend to have a lot of product expertise, and they tend to fall into the trap of talking to the customer about the characteristics of the product or service they sell. So focus on relationship, focus on product facts. They tend to be quite orientated towards a service focus, or wanting to do the right thing by the client. And usually what happens is, at some stage in the sales process, I laugh because it's frustrating, is they end up getting beaten up on pricing, because the customer can easily find a number of suppliers who look after them from a service and a product quality point of view. So then the next group is what I call the solution seller. This was really the big thing in the 80s and the 90s. So if you're familiar with that time frame, in the world of B2B selling, people started using this idea called a solution seller or solution selling. And the idea is you spoke to the client and you said, hey, Mr. Client, what problems are you trying to solve with our products and services? And then what we would do is we would connect the characteristics of our product and service to the issue the client had. So we responded to the client agenda, and then we position ourselves as being a trusted advisor or problem solver for that client. And that brings us to the 4th person in the group, which we call the trusted advisor. So this idea has actually been around for a long time. Some people are only hearing this language in the last few years. And the idea here is the solution seller is responding to the client agenda. The trusted advisor is creating a new agenda for the client. So the way they do that is they bring new perspectives and new ideas to the client, and they say, hey, Mr. Client, here's my understanding of what you're trying to do. Here's the issues you're encountering in pursuit of what you're trying to do. Here's some new ways you can think about that problem, or some new ways of solving that situation you're trying to deal with. And the trusted advisor brings ideas, brings insights, brings new ways to produce results to the client. So the customer or the potential customer, so the prospect, as we usually refer to them as, they see this person as being an advisor they can go to get insight into how they should approach situations in their business. So if you look at the screen in front of you, on the left-hand side, so where the order taker and the product seller operate, their focus or their perception of where the value is, it's actually in the product or the service that they sell. So they think that's the value that the customer is actually interested in. It's in the characteristics of the thing they sell. On the right-hand side of the quadrant where the solution seller and the trusted advisor operate, they actually see that a lot of the value comes from actually the seller and the sales process the seller is actually using. So the seller is actually a large part of the value proposition, and we'll talk about that again in a few minutes' time. On the left-hand side of the quadrant, a lot of the focus is on commodity pricing. On the right-hand side, the focus is on premium pricing, because we're bringing business value to the equation for the customer or the potential customer. On the left-hand side of the quadrant, the focus is on the products. We tend to be quite what we call product-centric. So we talk about the nature of the thing we sell and the characteristics of the thing we sell a lot. Whereas on the right-hand side of the quadrant, we tend to focus more on the customer as opposed to the product. And we're trying to find out, what's that customer trying to do with the thing we actually sell? So what's the outcome they're after? What's the issue they're actually trying to solve? So the mission with the salesperson ladder or the salesperson matrix is we want to sell on the right-hand side of the matrix. And what we mean by selling on the right-hand side of the matrix is we focus on the customer, we focus on premium pricing, we try to find out what's the customer trying to do with the things we sell, and what are the problems they're experiencing in pursuit of the outcome that they're actually after. So it's very much premium pricing, customer-centric, and the value is in the sales process. That's where the customer is going to extract a lot of the value from the thing we do.